Okay, we should probably start on time. We'll let people wander in as they wander in. Welcome everybody. This is the first briefing session of Digistore's Media Entertainment Technology Open Day. So take advantage of it as much as you can. There's lots of people to talk to. So we have exhibitors in the room behind you, exhibitors in the room to my right. Autodesk is finishing setting up their virtual reality studio at the front of the office, so if you get a chance to experience that, that would be excellent. We have the specials in the warehouse and lots of food and drink, so participate and enjoy and talk to people and make the most of the day that you can. We are streaming live, so that's why I wanted to take time to start as much as possible on time today. My name is Mark Richards. I'm the marketing manager of Digistore, so if anything goes wrong today, I'm to blame. I welcome you today. And the first session is OTT Video and Live Streaming. I wanted to cover off 3 points, just a couple of brief market trends and the applications for live streaming. Have a look at some of the current solutions that are available, and then have a look at a brief case study for an application that we used recently. Really what I want to do today is try and frame some of the applications and usages that you might have in order to get questions and start looking at solutions so you can speak to Digistore people about the sort of things that might suit your particular applications. So let's look at some of the initial market trends. So what is OTT broadcasting? So it's over-the-top broadcasting using the internet rather than traditional cable and broadcast. It's very well established now. This is not a question anymore. It's not something that's really even new. I know my daughter, who's 21, now never watches scheduled programs on television anymore. Everything's watch streamed. So it's a real and happening thing. So who here watches regular streaming services? Everybody. It's just a fait accompli now. The good news for all of us who want to use this technology is that it adds acceptance. Performance of the networks are geared to streaming now, and the new tools are available so that professional level broadcasting is available to a much broader range of users, and we'll have a look at some of those options for people to use it. Basically, adding of additional capabilities so that you can watch anytime on any device is a great boon for us and attracts audiences because of the additional capabilities of interactivity and participation. There's a couple of technology developments that are happening right now which are improving the performance of this to allow higher quality and better resolution, and I've mentioned a couple of those here, allowing us to broadcast across a wider range of devices with much lower overhead and allowing new ways to experience media. This is drawing more audiences all the time. I found a good infographic online, and I'll put up the link for that. These slides will be archived for the presentation afterwards, so you'll be able to access those online via the website, our website webpage for the event. But I wanted to pull out a few salient points for this. The first one is, why do people watch live streams at all rather than watching pre-recorded streamed video or watching broadcast, normal traditional broadcast streams? Well, the 3 reasons, I suppose, overall are immediacy. You don't miss out. You can get it exactly when it's happening at all time. Participation, you can get involved with the program yourself via social media, by commenting, by talking with others, and using those sorts of capabilities. And convenience, watching anywhere at any time. So I think they're the 3 things that are driving that very quickly now. Why and where are viewers viewing it? It's very well established, as I mentioned before. It's growing very quickly, and I think the bottom right hand one shows us that it's driven by funny cat videos. That's certainly got people watching stuff on devices and then moving forward from there. If you're thinking about doing your own live stream broadcasting, what makes it successful? And here's a few things that you should look at to achieve. Digistore is only just starting to use this ourselves for our own live streaming, so we're learning how to make all that successful and utilize the capabilities that are available today. But basically, consistency and focusing, real-time interaction with viewers, and good content and video quality. We can help you with those things. Okay, there are also opportunities to monetize, even for people like Digistore or for other commercial organisations that are looking at broadcasting and live streaming themselves. So you can profit from those, if not just in money terms, then certainly in generating leads. So if you're looking at live streaming as a platform, or your own streaming or broadcasting using these technologies, then it's something else to consider. How am I going to profit from this? How am I going to make it worthwhile? Even if it's just growing audience, generating leads, or even taking direct money from people to do that. So let's look at some of the current solutions. I've just put up there horses for courses. There are many ways to implement solutions for live streaming. And we provide a broad spectrum of solutions to match specific requirements. So although we'll mention some particular solutions, there are a whole range of things that you could use depending on exactly what your application is. So this may give you some consideration of how you can put together a solution for your particular application. If we look at the process, we're starting it from left to right, from the sources that you need to consider. So how are you feeding things that you want to stream live? There's the obvious things like cameras and mics, but you might have computer screens for application demonstration from maybe from Facebook or other streaming video or other sources. Computer audio, obviously, web streams, IP cameras, NDI sources. It's moving. There's a strong movement to move video streams over IP infrastructure rather than over SDI and normal video and audio infrastructure, and that's allowing a boon for this application so that we can not only take streams digitally from almost anywhere, from any switches and devices and video and audio equipment that's supporting NDI, but also output from those into other environments for downstream mixing and maybe broadcasting in other formats as well, so that using normal computer Ethernet infrastructure. IP cameras, media files, social interactions, etc. So out of all those, what do you need to implement? How are you going to switch it between different sources? Are you going to use external switching boxes, etc.? How is it going to be encoded? Where is it going to go? How, it's all very well developing a stream and producing a beautiful program from all these sources and switching and doing graphics and overlays and social interactions, but how are you going to get it to your audience? So there's a variety of ways to do that. And then what are you going to do with all of that source media and the program that you're producing? Are you going to record it? Do you need to edit it later? Do you need to post it for people to view after the thing? So their considerations as well. Telestreams Wirecast puts it another way. They look at the whole workflow. What are your audio and video sources? What hardware are you going to use to process those? What software are you going to use to deliver those sort of capabilities? And what destinations are you going to use? So there's just a listing of some of those in other terms for you to consider for your workflow. So to reach the audience at the other end out of your streaming platform, the stream needs to be made available in a streaming platform, to a streaming platform of some kind. I hesitated because I'd written on here streaking platform, which took me by surprise. I actually mean streaming platform. Of some kind that it can be distributed and accessed over the internet. So here are some of the features of streaming platform that a streaming platform can offer you. At this event we're using Ustream, which has been really good for us to, and I'll show you some of the capabilities of Ustream as a streaming platform. Basically, we've used Facebook Live before. Here's some information about how some of those streaming platforms are used how they're growing, how many people are looking at them. You have to be somewhat wary of some of these statistics. Facebook and other things measure the number of views by how long they view it for. So for example, Facebook, I think, if anyone views anything for more than 3 seconds, it's considered a view. But if you use other platforms like Vimeo Live, they consider things, they have to watch it for 3 minutes or more before they consider. So you get very skewed data out of that. But it's growing, and we know it's growing. And here's a few points. But I guess where you're going to stream to is going to depend on where your audience is and what level of interaction, what expectation, how they want to share it, how they want to use it. So there's a pretty wide range of those to do that. YouTube Live has been slower to gain traction than other live streaming sources, but there's a couple of points about other platforms. I like the idea of fans being able to purchase gifts, to be able to gift to the person doing the stream, it's ways to monetize it. Those sorts of interactions are interesting things. So if we looked at Ustream, which is what we're using at the moment, there's some of the capabilities. So we've set up channels, so we can set up various channels for different streams, and a channel can contain any number of videos that you want to use. This is just one example. So we've set up a channel for MET Open Day. Obviously, there's being able to set up the information, events within it, archive videos within it, so after you auto record you can archive them and use them. You can develop playlists that can be made available via that channel. Security interactivity, so that you can establish chats online, so people can chat to each other and also to the person who's doing that live stream. Off-air, so if it's an off-air, what graphics you want to use, setting up the channel page, sharing so that you can allow people to share it between each other, various player settings, so you can embed a player, which we've done on our own website. So rather than sending people off to Facebook, which is not great for your audience, you want them to come to your own website and be able to be on the site and using it, and you can encourage people to move on from there. So we can embed it on our own via a player, and various broadcast setting and leads, etc. So we can set up registration gates, so that if someone wants to view your video, they have to register, put in their name, and that generates leads for us, which is a way of monetization, if you like. So that's just one example of the sorts of things that you can get from a streaming platform. So what sort of solution should you use for actually doing the live streaming? Recently we used Zoom, which is quite interesting because essentially it's just a meeting, like GoToMeeting program, and also webinars. So if you're doing one presenter or two presenters to many hundreds of viewers, and just doing screen sharing with voiceover, Zoom lets you just say, I want to do this to Facebook Live straight now. So all of those platforms are also adding live streaming built into them. So probably many of them, if you're using today, enable that. So you can start using that capability to reach a broader audience as well. So we've done that. NewTek TriCaster, turnkey hardware and software solution with a pretty broad family solutions offering. NewTek were the instigators of NDI, the open interface, which is growing in popularity, as I mentioned before, for interfacing multiple audio and video devices together very easily and switching between them. StreamStar has software-only solutions plus simple operational interface, which we love, so great, simple push-button stuff. It's a really nice solution for those. Very strong in sports because of its simple replays and playlists and those sorts of things. But you may also just have a single video and audio source that you need to stream. So, and I'll talk about that in an application. And there's Matrox Monarch is a great box example for doing that. It takes SDI or HDI MI streams and lets you encode it to multiple formats and send it out to multiple destinations in a simple, easy to use box. So if that's all you need, it's a good solution for that sort of thing as well. Wirecast I've picked Wirecast as an example just to cover a couple more details because they've just introduced version 8 software and the Wirecast gear. So just to show you some of the capabilities of things that are in the solutions today that you might consider, and we've set that up as an example. So the Wirecast 8 software that's just released is implemented some pretty amazing things that were never available that weren't available before. Unlimited input sources, which is obviously dependent on hardware and processing power, etc. Streaming to Facebook Live or any RTMP server, greater audio mixing, graphics, titles, playlists, replay capabilities, ISO recording, AV sync, and a whole lot more. One of the features I liked particularly was the rendezvous feature that they did. So this enables you to have multiple sites, if you like. So if you were switching to a remote commentator or switching to a remote event, so you might be running a sports program and switching to someone who's down on the field or within the audience, and they can be, you can switch to them directly, and they can have a software on their phone from Wirecast to broadcast themselves back, and you can switch between them like they were remote camera sources, which is really nice. So you've got multiple site, multiple participants switching of live programming material via mobile devices or other computers, no matter where they are, and bring them into the same mix, which is pretty cool. So that's nice to see. Pretty powerful audio mixing capabilities. So one of the nice features is the ability to do multi-language live streaming and recording. So you might have someone commentating in one language and someone in a different language, and depending on which thing you want to switch from, you can switch from it. We've had applications where we've had multiple computer systems where we need to bring in, and each of those has independent audio. We need to switch between them and turn the tracks on and off and those sorts of things. So that sort of stuff wasn't really available in just off-the-shelf software before, but you know, this sort of capabilities are now available. Pretty advanced multi-viewer capabilities. So if you're the person doing the show, producing the show, you need to show in a very easy to understand way exactly what all your sources are and what's coming up next, and be able to manage and switch between them, and so things like being able to assign sources to multiple slots with simple drag and drop interface. They've really thought through that capability as well. That's very nice. Improved 3D workspace render engine, so the ability to have multiple layers and be able to move them up and down, and manage all of those, you know, for picture-in-picture and reflections and drop shadows and those sort of things you had to buy dedicated hardware for previously. So we're seeing that built into the software tools, and things like color space management and automatic detection and management of those things, so to optimize the stream and exactly what it looks like when it gets out there. Facebook Live comments and more, so there's an example of bringing in the live Facebook comment feed and being able to include that on your stream. So instead of, it's like the rendezvous feature. Previously, if you wanted to switch remote devices, remote commentators, you might have had to have someone on Skype, for example, try and capture the screen and bring it in. But now you can just use the mobile app or another desktop using Wirecast Go and have that as a feed coming in directly without having to capture the screen. In this case, rather than having to capture the screen from your social media stuff or grab the text from somewhere, those sort of things are built into, and you can switch. They're just another source. Your interaction is another source with the program that you're mixing. There's pretty dramatic improvements in the titling. Certainly in terms of templates, so that you can drive your own graphics and create your own graphics without spending a whole lot of time doing that. And web-connected graphics. So if you're looking at the professional version, you want to generate professional graphics from external devices and bring them in and be able to switch them as sources. So you might have a separate graphics computer driving that directly into your production. So to fit all that into a piece of software, there's been some pretty dramatic changes under the hood to get the performance up. Much improved encoding, so higher speed encoding at higher quality, which is good. Much better rendering engine, which is multiple sources, picture-in-picture, drop shadows, more audio tracks, all of those sorts of things, to make it much, much faster and more responsive. So that's the software. I talked about a number of solutions that have software only, or software and hardware options, or are just a hardware-software turnkey solution. So Wirecast is an example of software and software-hardware turnkey solution. So Wirecast Gear is a complete turnkey. Essentially, it adds the Wirecast Pro software into a nice hardware box gives you capabilities up to 4 channels of SDI configurable I/O, so you can come in from up to 4, configure them as input or output channels in the hardware alone. Very nice performance on these devices, so even with taking up to 4 channels of I/O, encoding multiple streams, and doing pictures and overlays and stuff, the CPU still measures about 30% of its performance hit. So it's designed to give you that sort of, specifically to give you that sort of capability. It's a standard Windows machine, Windows 10. There's some indicative pricing. I just left the US pricing in there, just as an example, but note that they're US pricing. There's 3 levels, depending on the number of input and outputs you want and how you want to configure them and what capabilities you want for graphics and titling and those sorts of things. So there's an example of the workflow. A couple of recent Australian purchases. So a number of independent broadcasters coincidentally have worked with us to look at live sports applications. So being able to mix and broadcast live sporting materials with social media, and we've sold multiple units out there for this particular application, which is interesting because they were evaluated against, in some cases evaluated against other platforms, for example, a replacement for existing New Tech TriCaster stuff. So the Wirecast Gear independently was evaluated for those particular applications and put in place, which I think pre-8 you wouldn't have seen that happen because of the performance and capabilities for those sorts of things. So being able to have multiple live cameras, dynamically mixing in other media, and the sort of production capabilities of instant replay, playlists, titles, chroma key, virtual sets, live scoreboards, clocks, timers, all those sorts of things in an open piece of software in a turnkey box to give you the performance is what sort of influenced people for those sort of purchases. I wanted to mention a couple of specials that are on. If you own Wirecast at the moment, you can cash in or trade in your Wirecast software. Whatever you've paid for that goes towards the Wirecast Gear upgrade, so they call it a Gear Up promo. So that's available until the end of the year, basically. We also have an Open Day special, so we're offering 10% off Wirecast Gears during this week as part of it. So take advantage of sitting down with Greg, Greg Taylor, who's spending some time with the Wirecast Gear there. We're streaming this via the Wirecast software to Ustream, but we've also got a gear set up in the room directly behind you that you can check out. Just a recent example of how we've used it and how you might consider it. We ran the ASE Australian Screen Editors Edit Royale competition, where there were 5 editors who came here, and they were up and coming editors, and they were given 4 hours of footage, all had the same footage. They were given different soundtracks, and they hadn't seen any of that stuff before, and they had 2 hours to cut it together into a music video while being fed pizzas and beers and harangued by compares and MCs and ask questions about what they're doing and how they're doing it. So it was a great environment for up-and-coming editors to come and see what editors were doing and talk about it and share information and drink all our booze and eat every pizza, or if not, take it away. Editors, need breakfast and they don't get a lot of time to go out shopping when they're certainly coming along to events like this. So it was a really good time, but it was a challenge for something to do a live stream of. We had 5 computer systems plus the computer audio that we had to switch between. We had multiple mics and a live camera feed over SDI. We were switching and mixing between all of those sources, but when we needed to do smooth dissolves, so we had to handle things that may not be very good sources. So you might be switching from SDI to HDMI to something else, so that was a bit problematic. We needed to make sure that those would lock up and sync smoothly and not drop out the live stream and things like that. We needed audio levels and switchings, we needed a single graphic overlay, but no real production. So there's no you know, picture-in-picture and scores and putting in social media and doing anything sophisticated with the images. It's just switching with dissolves with a simple overlay. And we had a live audience, so the live audience had to see what was the result of that mix that was being streamed. So it had to be streamed and up on a large screen and a projector for the live audience. We wanted the audience to see a multi-view, so they could see all the computers simultaneously, so they could sit down and see what everyone was doing. And we wanted to give audio amplification for the program out, so people sitting here who are just watching could just watch it. So it was a pretty demanding thing. We wanted to live stream to our website and Twitter, Facebook stream on the website. We wanted a registration gate, we wanted to archive it, we wanted some post-processing, so we wanted to download it and put it up on the website and post it on YouTube, and we wanted to do all that with what we had lying around and in stock, rather than having to go out and buy a whole lot of stuff. So this was the solution that Greg put together out of all of that. I think there's just a couple of things I wanted to point out. I remember I said we didn't want to do a lot of sophisticated graphics switching production environment. All we wanted to do was switch between them. So we used an ATEM switcher in this case, and it had a couple of MacBooks connected to it, one to run the switching rather than pressing having to do the buttons, but in addition to run the audio levels on the MacBook, so we can have an external monitor to do that rather than having to use the box. So that was just over an Ethernet connection controlling the ATEM switcher. All the sources were coming into the back of that. We were then outputting the via the multi-view to the display 10, the big display 10 monitor. We were doing a program out to both the projector and to a large monitor so people could see. So we used an AJ8 Keypro Mini to split signals and convert them and stuff out of that, so various converters to do that. But then we had to stream it out, so we took the program out via SDI into Monarch HDX, so it was just sat there streaming that out to the to Ustream, and that's a separate Ustream channel which was then embedded on our website so people could watch it live. The Ustream was recording it automatically in the cloud and then at 1920, 1080, and then we could bring it down and edit that and put it up to YouTube and post-produce it later on down the track. So that's just a specific example where we chose, not to go the whole streaming production sophisticated software environment because of the challenge of having the multiple sources without having to do anything extra to it. We just wanted to dissolve between them and that was it. So that was one particular solution as well. So as I mentioned, horses for courses. It's what do you want to do and how do you want to do it, over what period of time, and how's your streaming requirements going to change, and choose something that suits. But that was one particular way that we did it. Okay, so in summary, check out the Wirecast demo that's here today. Take advantage of the specials, both the trade up and the 10% off if you're looking at that particularly. I think I'd like to say, talk to us about particular applications and requirements, just to chat it through. What do you need to do? How do you need to do it today? What are your sources? Where do you need to go to? What's the audience? What's their expectations? What's going to happen over time? How are you going to grow this into another environment? So there's lots of people here today to talk to. Look for Digistore name tags and make the most of that. So I'll open up to questions if there's any questions at this time. Short and sweet. Someone must have a question.
Hello.
Yes.
Who won the edit contest?
The young girl who was in the picture, whose name just escapes me at the moment, in the slideshow.
What application was she running?
She was using Avid Media Composer.
Of course. What else is there?
In fact, she was the only girl and the only person running Media Composer. So, which was quite interesting because the editors put together, you looked at the way they did it, and you have to tell a story from footage you've never seen before in a coherent way. And it was interesting to see the difference between the sort of the way editors approach that. And she had a different approach. She used, most of the editors used shots that were, the full face shot, the full talent, the real action. But she used a lot of shots which were backs of heads moving out of scene and people sort of just disappearing and things not quite happening and which created this sort of emotional thing, which was quite interesting. But that's not a relevant question. Live streaming, but so anything else?
If you had the Wirecast gear for that,
Yes.
demo, could you essentially could replace quite a lot of that equipment?
You could replace quite a lot of equipment.
Yeah.
Our demo Wirecast gear, in fact, was out
On demo.
on demo,
Yeah.
and we probably would have used it for that, except that it was just the simple switching side of it. We just didn't need to do anything else to it.
But you can switch in the Wirecast.
You can.
Yeah.
You can, but there are a lot of extra software capabilities which we didn't need, and we didn't want an operator to have to be involved with anything complex or more complex than it needed to be. We just wanted to have, multi-view and be able to see them and switch between them. But yes, absolutely, you could do that. It's just how we chose to do it.
Yeah.
On that day. One way to skin a cat.
Yeah. Is there a hardware panel available for the Wirecast as well? Does it take, say, sort of an A10 panel or a keys or something like
That's
that?
a good
Do you want
question.
hardware control over your switching?
Did you storers know the answer to that question?
I don't think so. It's not a Telestream product.
Yes, but there are a third party, as you say, there are third party, control panels or control surfaces that people could use. So,
Or even just a macro keyboard or something like that?
There's no reason why not.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that question. I would suspect so because it's a very, it must be a common requirement. So we'll look into it and find the answer to that. But I don't know the answer. All right. Well, thank you very much. Indulge in people's time, in experience, in demos, in food and drink, and freak yourself out with VR and enjoy some more sessions. The session timetable's there.
Hello, how's it going? I've just found this. It's a large advantage, yeah. We'll go back to this one. I enjoyed that. Oh, really? It's funny about once you're in, that's it for me. Oh, okay. Sorry.